Tactical escape. Okay, so this is the running away, if you like. So tactical escape is not just blindly running away. It's escaping from a situation in a way that allows you to get to a point of safety. So you're not running away from the threat. You're going to a point of safety. You've got a place to go to. You know where you're headed to. You know what exit you're headed to, where the exit leads. When you do so, you are keeping your eyes on the threat until you can get a strong enough distance, long enough distance between you and them in order to make your escape. And so that all of that is a tactical escape, and that includes how you are going to be moving. It doesn't necessarily have to be a run. Sometimes we can be removing yourself from a situation when you can feel that something bad's going to happen in a certain environment, and so you edge your way towards the door slowly. That can be a form of tactical escape, and to full on running. You could be running in a park, running inside a building, any number of different places where it could be a tactical escape. And it has an entire area of training, which should be in your self-defense training. So tactical escape, big part of it. And you just don't get that really. I mean, you have to go to a sport like rugby to see anything that resembles tactical escape, and it's not exactly the same thing. Although I have to say, there's some very good attributes you can pull from a sport like rugby or American or Aussie rules football, etc. Okay, there's no to and fro fighting. So it comes back to this asymmetry here. So symmetrical fighting allows for to and fro fighting, circling, feinting, or range finding. These are all the things that you do in an agreed match fight. So when you're fighting another person, the to and fro element comes in because you go to a certain range that allows for that backwards and forwards. You want to and fro because you're trying to anticipate their moves, you're trying to set up moves, you're creating situations and opportunities for you to attack. Any of those things present yourself in a self-defense situation, that's when you go to a tactical escape. So it doesn't play any role. You don't feint. There's not you're not playing by the same rule set as somebody else. Okay, so a feint, for example, in boxing is not going to work necessarily for a person who's going to attack you. A feint that you would do in Muay Thai, to set up another attack isn't going to be the same thing that you'll find in a self-defense situation. So, and certainly range finding, I say, the ranges are you're either in range or out of range. You're out of range and you're escaping. So. We then go to scalability. So it needs to be scalable. Self-defense has to be scalable in order for it to be proportionate. So there's low risk situations. So this again often is the problem. People when they're being critical of some self-defense training, they look at situations usually through their own lens without a lot of empathy, and the situations that a person would encounter, depending on their age, gender, size, environment, even culture, can be totally different to another person. So, and low risk situations are a great way to look at that. So, how you to physically deal with a low risk situation, such as the insidious assault, which I covered in an earlier vlog. Then you have middle risk situations, the classic dust up at the barbecue, if you like. You could be splitting up a fight, or somebody's needs to be just brought under control because they're going to be a danger to themselves or someone else. That's what I call a middle risk situation. And high risk situations speak for themselves. Again, this is a full force, life-threatening situation, and your response will need to be appropriate to that too. So it's got to be scalable. And again, that scalability, yeah, I do appreciate you go lighter and harder in fights, and there's a lot of sophistication with regards to that. But generally speaking, especially if you're competing, the intensity is going to be pretty much the same on both sides. There might be different paces, but pacing isn't the same as scaling. Okay, so that's a different discussion altogether. So yes, it's that scalability, and that scalability is often what catches out a lot of people who just think they can replace their self-defense training with martial arts combat sport training. Finally, legally justifiable. As I said, I define self-defense by the fact that it is a legal, it's legally justifiable. So the force is only used to prevent or stop violence. That's the whole point of that force. The second you're using it to defend your honor, because you feel insulted, because you feel your partner's been insulted, anything along those lines, then you're not claiming self-defense. So yeah, it's got to be legally justifiable. So you're using it to prevent or stop violence. You're also it's also down to the circumstances, and the circumstances can really range in self-protection. Just simply by the fact it could be your partner, it could be a family member that you're defending yourself against. So things that change with all sorts of circumstances. The force has got to be proportionate. Okay, so that is proportionate, and obviously we can go into sort of the legal side of it there, and great books on there. Lee Sims's books, Mark Dawes's books come highly recommended. So they need to be reasonable and proportionate. And finally, the defender does not agree to fight. They did not agree to fight. So that's so important when we look at self-protection and we're using self-defense as our argument. The defender did not agree to fight. And that in itself rules out pretty much any form of agreed or consensual violence, be it a combat sport, a street fight, or whatever. Okay, so that's my view on the whole thing, and I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please comment. Please, I'd like to hear feedback from you, and of course, if you're interested in booking me to teach you or a group, your business, please get in contact as well for my bespoke services.